The major headline today, something that I think a lot of people have been worried about for a while. Why parents are worried about CBC. Pioneer grade 9 students are set to transition to senior school next year, but there's confusion surrounding the transition from junior to senior secondary school and the myriad of challenges bedeviling the new education system. That's pushed some parents to move their children to expensive institutions offering international curricula. What do they say? Most parents are not sure about what happens after senior school. Which universities will our children join after completing senior school? Very, very valid concerns, pages 4 and 5. And I think, Latiff, you've raised this quite a few times in terms of just the matters around the education system. I think there's a time with the three of us were looking at the different ways that they're trying to transition students. It was hard for us to keep up. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Right.
We were trying to read. And so the misinformation or the miscommunication, it's really making parents struggle. And they're saying, I'd rather spend a bit more towards a system that has more clarity,
right,
and more assurance of the future. Yeah,
and a path that I understand. I know that this is grade 1 to grade 8. Then there's this. Then there's university. Then you know, that's it. I'm trying to learn a new system, and it's not working. Also, the fees now are not so different. You're like, okay, maybe.
Wouldn't I rather invest in an education that I'm sure of? And it's so unfortunate. And even as we look at the story on page 4, where it says, after observing her 2 sons learn under the competency-based curriculum for 6 and 7 years, Dr. Lucy Riungu recently decided to transfer to a school offering an international curriculum. Again, it's what I just mentioned, that most parents are just not sure about what happens later. And that she's among hundreds of parents who flocked the International Schools Fair in Mombasa on Saturday to inquire about how to transfer from CBC to international curricula. And most of the parents who spoke, some of them on the condition of anonymity for privacy reasons, said CBC is still at infancy stage and would need a lot of work before it becomes better. And get quality teachers, verify them because of what you want your child to excel in. So that's a really good way to put it. It's at infancy stage. We're trying, testing, winging it, and at the same time trying to churn out candidates and people who are supposed to be really a part of building this nation. And even as you skim to page 5 at the top corner, another concern is why mathematics won't be compulsory in senior school. What are we fixing? Why are we breaking things, cracking them, and then trying to piece them together?
You know, I remember when 844 at its peak, if people went into other curricula, they would usually thrive quite easily, because it was like, this is child's play compared to what I've come from.
The rote learning I've come from.
Yeah.
So now I'm wondering, for example, Dr. Riungu's children, if the case will be the same, if they're transferring from CBC to other curricula, will they be struggling or will they be thriving as a system? I don't know. Like you said, infancy, but why are we testing with people's lives, with people's future, children's futures, and nation's futures? We've spoken about it so many times, but yeah, test and test and test again until you're sure that you have something that works, and then roll out in phases and figure out what's working, tweak here, tweak there, then give us the whole CBC. Now it's, I have to transfer my children, and then there's the 98% of parents who may not be able to afford to transfer their children. What happens to them?
Yeah. And the sad bit here is that the Ministry of Education appears uncertain of what it's doing. Remember that time when we were discussing this, was last week but one, and on that Friday the Minister for Education was going to launch this rollout plan, and then they gave parents 7 days, stakeholders 7 days to give their input. And last week, I think on Thursday or Wednesday or Thursday, the Ministry of Education, or one of the places in Nairobi, they met to say, now we've had the 47 forums that have looked at this transition to grade 10, and we are now factoring in the transition, and this is what is going to happen. They said that when the schools close this term, during the holidays, parents are supposed to discuss this with their children, because when the children come back for term 2 of grade 9, they will now be selecting schools. The selection of schools is as complicated as you can think. It's just an entire grade 9 learners in junior school will transition to senior school next year based on the career pathways of their choice, abilities and interests. CBC has 3 pathways in senior school, and this is in page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation today. In grade 10, it's not compulsory to do mathematics and science subjects, because if you're not doing humanities or sciences, then why would you be required to do mathematics? In an interview with The Nation in Mombasa during the County Dialogues on Education Quality, Dr. Kipsang, the PS for Basic Education, said senior schools would be categorized according to career pathways. He says, I need to demystify this compulsory thing of mathematics. I do not know where it came from. The only thing that's compulsory to schools is that STEM pathways should be offered by every school. But having STEM does not mean that children are forced to do STEM. It's only that it's available in that school. Okay, so this now comes to explain. So in those 3 pathways, remember there is the STEM pathway, there is the arts pathway, and there's the other one, what?
Sports science and
it was like arts, sports science, humanities.
it was arts, sports science, and then social sciences.
And social. I have that.
Okay, so in there, but those pathways.
Page.
One, those
here it is.
tracks, pathways that lead into tracks.
So.
Okay.
This was which day of the Daily Nation?
I love the drama.
I have
Eric.
kept it.
It's just like
That's good.
Because I knew this conversation will come again.
and you'll need. Yeah.
This was on Wednesday, March 5th, the back page of the Daily Nation, the pathways, right? It was social science, arts and sports, and STEM.
There you go.
Right?
At the corner there.
Because this conversation.
Remember that table and how we were trying to bring
Understand it, yeah, and it's
just
like,
all over.
am I the one who's not super sharp, or
It's
is
just-
this thing just really
it's cray-cray.
complicated?
And it helps when parents say this, because some people are scared to share that they are confused. I like how one parent here says, one time, the Ministry of Education says mathematics is compulsory. The next day, they clarify it's not. Who is in charge of this ministry? Is it President Ruto? Is it the Cabinet Secretary? Is it the Principal Secretary? This is a parent saying, who's in charge?
I can't even tell.
And how are you making things change so much? So I really think this needs an entire kind of conversation, because it's very worrying. It's very worrying. Education, health, piloting these things, not rolling them out in phases like you've said, Mariam, assuming people will understand it.
Right.
Think about 10 years from now. Think about these people now trying to enter the job market 15, 20 years from now. And this is their foundation.
Right.
It's really wrong. It's wrong to do this to our population.
Yeah.
As it is, every employers, graduates are not job ready. Graduates are not job ready. As it is, now compound that by a factor of CBC. Do the math.
Do the math. The math which will no longer be compulsory, but let's do it anyway.
You.
I like the fact that math is not compulsory. I mean, look.
In grade 9 and 10, let's be
No,
clear.
in 10.
It's only
In senior school. In junior it's fine.
Okay.
In senior, if you're going to do social sciences, language and literature, where you're studying literature in English, Fasihi, Kiswahili, sign language, Arabic, French, German, Mandarin, Chinese, and indigenous languages, by taking math. The cluster that you should have is English, Swahili and sign language, or any other learning area.
To be honest, I agree with that. I think once you've got your math up to, I think, grade 8, 9,
Grade 8, 9.
should be, yeah. I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's anywhere in the world where, math is not compulsory.
I know it said that the revelation that the math wouldn't be compulsory has drawn mixed feelings from Kenyans.
People are used to the things that as they see them.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like saying, secondary schools now they'll no longer be boarding. People will be like, huh?
It's because it's just piloting. So a lot of really good stories on the daily.